Welcome to the IVM Podcast Network. Hi, this is Amit Doshi, and I wanted to thank each and every one of our listeners. It's been 2 years since I founded IVM, and it's been an amazing 2 years. We wanted to learn a little bit more about who is listening to our shows, and so we put together a short survey. The survey is anonymous, and we aren't going to be collecting any personal information. I would really appreciate it if you could take a couple of minutes out of your day and go to ivmpodcast.com/survey and fill it out. Thanks, and please keep listening.
Hey friend, so if you're listening to a podcast right now, you're probably some kind of a nerd at heart at least. So maybe, just maybe, you might like another podcast about nerds, by nerds, and for nerds.
It's called Geek Fruit, a community to unite estranged geeks from across India and later on the world. We talk about television, movies, science fiction, adventure, fantasy, etc. Anything nerdy, it's all here on Geek Fruit.
We've got episodes coming out every Tuesday and Thursday, and you can check us out on iTunes, Audioboom, Stitcher, or any of your favorite podcast apps. Like my favorite podcast app, the IVM Podcast app. Give me my money, IVM.
Good plug.
Happy listening, you nerds.
You're listening to the onCourse podcast.
Hi everyone, welcome to the onCourse podcast. onCourse is a creative and alternate education company that aims to bridge the gap between classroom education and real-world skills. So in this regard, we offer a wide range of programs from short skill-based courses to test prep to application assistance for those looking to study abroad. My name is Alisha Mashruwala and I'm the CEO and co-founder of onCourse.
Hi guys, my name is Akhil Daswani. I'm your co-host for this show and I'm the COO and co-founder of onCourse as well.
So today we're going to talk a little bit about, the UK as a destination to study abroad. So typically a lot of people come in wondering what are the different options that they have when they're looking for an undergraduate or postgraduate degree. So let's, dive in a little bit into the UK and let's start a little bit with the undergraduate degree.
The UK has always been a very popular destination. I guess maybe it just stems from our colonial roots. Given the fascination that India has with the UK, it's only natural for us to spend our entire show discussing it. So in terms of an undergraduate degree in the UK, there's two main points of criteria which they look at. The first thing which they will look at are your grade 10 final scores. And now that means across the board, whether that's your ICSE, whether that's your IGCSE, whether that's, your O-levels, whichever board you're in, your 10th grade final score is pivotal. Your 12th grade, what they will do is they will look at your 10th grade, they will look at predicted scores for your 12th grade, which your school or college will have to send in, on the basis of which what they will do is give you a conditional offer. And I'll discuss the conditional offer a little bit more in depth after this. So the grades really is the essential bit. They don't want to see school grades or prelim marks. What they're concerned about are those actual board marks, right? Beyond this, of course, they do look a little bit at extracurriculars, but it's all about the extracurriculars connected to the course that you're applying for. So unlike other countries like the US, where they're looking for people who've done things, across the board. So even if you're interested in bio, but you've done community service or you're interested in playing the drums, that's essential to the US. But in the UK, if you want to study bio, the only extracurricular that matters is anything that's connected to bio. So whether it's research you've done, or it's an internship you've done in a hospital, or it's some kind of lab work, right? That's actually relevant to them. Anything beyond that's just not relevant. So these 2 points of criteria really form the basic index of getting into the UK. The other big point to remember when you are applying to the UK is you apply through a portal called the UCAS. Now UCAS, it's a very functional portal which allows a student to apply to up to 5 colleges in the UK. Why this is relevant is that I cannot apply to 6 or 7 or 8. I can only apply to 5 schools. And most importantly, I can only apply to one course. And the reason I can only apply to that one course is because there's one common SOP or statement of purpose that goes into each of these schools. Now, what a statement of purpose really is, it's an essay that really depicts your rationale and your reason for studying a particular course. So I can't apply for, bio to UCL and apply for, economics to LSE. I have to keep it at least within the same genre of a specific course.
So I guess in the UK, then the flexibility is a big issue. So, if you're applying to the same course to all of the universities, essentially what you're trying to say is that you know exactly what you want to study. So the UK becomes kind of a popular destination for those who are pretty clear, and I would say about 95 to 90 98% sure that this is exactly what they want to study. Because if you choose that, this is not the course for you, or you feel like you want to change your mind, in the UK, you typically start over. So that's why the UK is a 3-year program versus Canada or the US, which are both 4-year curriculums. And Akhil was talking earlier about the conditional offer bit of it. So this kind of becomes very similar to our Indian system. So our Indian system was kind of adapted from the UK system as well. So what happens essentially is when you apply to the college, say, for example, you're applying for management to Warwick. Warwick may say, okay, you know what, we like your profile overall. We'll give you a condition where we'll accept you as long as you get a 90% in your overall grade 12 exams, or a 38 IB in your overall grade 12 IB exams.
So, Alicia, what happens if you don't meet that mark?
If you don't meet that mark, you're not in. It's as simple as that. So it's pretty black or white in that sense, where you know kind of before you apply to that college, this is a kind of requirement that they have. So that's why, and plus you have only 5 colleges that you apply to. So it's very important to kind of structure your list in a way where, you have a couple of colleges which are maybe in or above your range, a couple of colleges in or below your range, and one which is a little bit below your range just in case you mess up your final exam. So that's essentially the aspect of the conditional offer, which is really important. In addition to this, of course, the UK does look at general English language testing for most students who are doing any of the Indian curriculums. So the UKVI IELTS is sort of a small requirement, and that's going to be the requirement for applications and for your visa as well. But in general, I think the UK, the big difference comes when you're applying to a college like Oxford or Cambridge. So point number 1 to note in that case is you can apply to either Oxford or Cambridge for an undergraduate course. So you can't apply to both of them. Whichever one you choose to apply to falls under the UCAS. So that's Oxford or Cambridge plus the other 4 colleges that you can actually apply to. They follow the same structure, the same system where you need to know exactly what you want to study. But the big difference here is being a couple of the most competitive colleges in the world. They do have a test based on the course that you choose to apply for. So for example, if you're applying for economics and management at Oxford, you're required to take what's called a TSA exam. If you're applying for engineering at Cambridge, they usually have a pre-engineering exam that you'll have to get through before you even get called for an interview. So both these colleges, the step 1 is usually a test, and step 2 is once you've crossed that sort of testing barrier, then you'll be called for an interview.
That's quite different for the other colleges, right?
Very different, because the other colleges don't typically have an interview process, and the other colleges don't usually need an additional test.
Yeah, and just coming back to the IELTS you mentioned earlier, can you tell us a little bit more about how the IELTS is sort of broken up and, what students can do to sort of prepare for that?
So the IELTS essentially is a basic English language test. So you'll have like a listening section, a reading section, a writing section, a speaking section. So they want to test that you can actually converse and speak in English, as well as communicate in terms of writing with your English. In terms of preparation, usually what you can do when you register to take the exam, you get practice material online, and that's the best way to kind of go about it. For those students who have been very comfortable with English throughout their schooling, so if you studied in an English medium school, typically you won't have much of a problem with the IELTS because it's a basic barrier for entry.
Right. And what is it scored out of?
The IELTS is scored out of 9. So most colleges that will accept the IELTS score will have a minimum requirement of about a 7. Sometimes they might have a section-specific requirement. So you might have someone tell you that, okay, you need a 7 in each section or a 6.5 in, not below 6.5 in each section. So that kind of depends from college to college. But in general, you want to keep that 7 as your barrier in terms of crossing it. Just a little bit about different types of courses that you can study in the UK. So, Akhil, you also see a lot of students apply to the UK. Yep. So, what are the types of courses they apply for?
So, obviously, if you think about it, someone who's applying to the UK knows exactly what he or she wants to do. So, they tend to be applying for business or a specific kind of engineering. That's another big point, right? They don't just have to say engineering, they have to know what kind of engineering. We see a lot of people who are interested in bio going towards courses like biochemistry because that keeps their doors open. We do see a number of people who apply for law. A number of people who, because again, with law in the UK, you can come back to India and practice as long as you do the conversion exam. We see people applying for medicine. Of course, that's a little harder. And of course, we see some specialized courses like, communications or English. And I think that's that's the broad, I would say that's about 90% of everyone who ends up applying to the UK.
And is the process different for anyone who wants to apply for law in the UK?
Yeah, it's different. I mean, the main difference is you have to take a test called the LNAT, which is it's a test based completely on logic, just to test your ability to rationalize things. And the LNAT score plays a key component beyond your grades. Of course, there are many colleges where you can still be admitted for law without the LNAT, like Warwick's one of them. So the thing is, I think these specialized tests depends from course to course, but particularly law, where you have the LNAT, and medicine, where you have the BMAT, are two specific courses where you do definitely need to take an external exam.
Right. So I think it's a lot of information about the UK in terms of an undergraduate degree, and I'm sure everyone's wondering about generally what the cost of studying in the UK is.
Of course. The good news on this is, since Brexit, our currency is actually appreciated against the pound. So what that meant was what previously used to be 100 rupees to a pound is now 82 rupees, right? So the 30,000 pounds, which was previously 30 lakhs, is now about 25 lakhs. It's usually a 3-year course, so making it about a 75 to 80 lakh education, which when you compare that to the US, which is now shaping up to be closer to a 2 crore education at an undergraduate level, it's a very big difference.
And I think the one, I would say, negative about the UK is there are not many scholarship opportunities available. So what happens is typically for students who do feel like they need that scholarship, there will be a couple of colleges that will give you the option to apply for internal scholarships, but as an international, it's always really hard to get those scholarships. Then you're kind of depending on the scholarships that you can get from the Indian organizations as well.
Of course, and the other thing, of course, is just always to remember at this point, at least, as we speak, the work visa in the UK virtually prevents any international student from really working there. So yes, you'll have a great education, but 99.99% of the time you will come back home.
Yeah, because the work visa will allow you to essentially stay back for 3 months, and that's about it after you graduate. So once you stayed back for 3 months, it's really hard to find a job in those couple of months as well. So most students who do end up going to the UK tend to, find a job elsewhere, or even potentially come back to India after that.
Alicia, why do you find that UK is such a popular destination?
I would say one of the reasons, of course, is your cost versus a lot of the other countries. Mm-hmm. Another reason is also because of location. It's fairly close to India, so a lot of families, especially for an undergraduate degree, don't necessarily want to send their kids very far away.
Do you feel like if they have family there, they're more comfortable as well?
That always happens. That's usually the case, especially when you're sending someone with the age of 17 or 18 to go study. You just want that safety net, knowing that there is some support system for them there as well. And I think the other thing is the UK education system is very similar to India. So in terms of a transition, it doesn't tend to be as much of a transition as it is for a lot of the other countries as well.
Great. So I think that's a lot of information on the undergrad in the UK. If someone's sitting today in 9th or 10th grade, or someone, whose parents are listening to this, what advice would you have for them to start preparing to sort of, send their kids or for themselves to go abroad?
So if I'm looking specifically at the UK, what I would typically do is have the student really, maybe do a couple of internships. That's the first and most important thing, because like you said earlier, in the UK, it's really important to know exactly what you want to study. So unless you know that for sure, it kind of becomes a risky proposition. And the best way to really find out what you're good at, where your strengths lie, and where your interest is essentially through some sort of practical exposure that you might get. It's very hard through just a psychometric test or an aptitude test to figure out exactly what you're going to end up doing in the future. So what I would encourage parents to do in grade 9 and 10, get their kids to talk to people in the field, get their kids to shadow people in the fields that they think they may be interested, just to start narrowing down what are potential options that they may want to consider in the future. In addition to that, by doing some of the shadowing work, by talking to people, you automatically will have a stronger statement of purpose eventually, because your extracurricular activity, like you mentioned earlier, is going to be linked to the course that you might want to do.
Great. So that's great advice. I think that brings us to the next segment of this show today, which is the postgraduate in the UK, right? Which is it's a very popular course, especially for families who don't send their kids abroad for their undergrad, and they always feel like, okay, they've missed out, and I think it's now time to send them abroad for postgrad. I think one key difference, which is what we always tell our clients at onCourse, is an undergrad is all about building skills which may not be tangible, or may not be hard skills. They're soft skills. It's developmental. It's education-based. Whereas a postgrad is all about your career. It's meant to be a stepping stone to achieve a future goal. right? So keeping that in mind, when people are applying to the postgrad in the UK, we tell them to do is choose a course which will really help them go ahead in their career. So it's essential for them to have an idea of what it is that they actually want to do in life before they choose their course, because that's essential. The reason the UK has become so popular for postgrad is because they have a depth and width of courses that no other country really offers at a postgraduate level. So if you look at business, which is a very popular postgrad, while the US will typically only offer an MBA, and that's the most standardized offering, the UK will offer a master's in management, a master's in marketing, a master's in finance. While other countries have a few of these courses, the UK just has a depth of this. From LBS to LSC to Imperial to Warwick to King's to City College in London. It's tremendous the kind of postgraduate opportunities you have.
So what does someone who's, say, in college right now doing whichever degree that they're studying right now have to do to prepare to go for a postgrad in the UK?
So I think the first thing to do is really identify. Well, first thing I would do is keep my grades as high as possible. That's your ticket, right? Like that's the main thing. The second thing I would do is, just as you said, for the undergrads to start interning, I would say it's even more important for the college kids to start interning, because they need to figure out their career. Because if you don't know your career, how do you choose the course? Right? So sure, you want to do a master's in marketing, but is marketing the right field for you? I mean, you don't want to spend, 25, 30 lakhs on a course and end up coming back and realizing that's not the field for you. So you want to make sure that it's the right field before you choose the course. I would do that. Once you do that, if you identify your course, I would then try to nail down whether my course specifically requires any external exams. For example, a master's in finance or a master's in management typically requires something called a GMAT, which is also used and utilized at an MBA stage. Some courses which are more on the humanities side, like international relations or public policy, may require a GRE. So that is typically something that you would want to take at the beginning of your third year, right, for those in the 3-year course. And as soon as you have that, along with good grades, you identified your course, you typically will want to apply by your first semester of your third year. And
I guess the good thing in the UK is as well, with different types of courses, you may not need any specific full-time work experience. So through the internships, you can kind of build your resume and your profile to kind of set yourself to go directly after your undergrad. Yeah,
in fact, schools like LBS say, like our Masters in Management course is only for those with 0 to 1 years of experience. So the minute you're above that, they say you wait for a couple of years and apply for an MBA program. So it's literally it's a pre-experience program. The pro of that is for those who are looking to just get the education done with, it's a great experience, and you get that that knowledge at a very specialized way. But the downside on it is it's not really comparable to an MBA. So you don't get that same networking, you don't get that same classroom experience because you're a 22-year-old, you're not a 28-year-old, right? And I think that's a huge difference, which people kind of mistake in the MBA versus the masters. But I think, if I'm trying to work backwards to this and I want to get my education done and I don't see myself going for an MBA, it's a great option.
Great. So I think that brings us to sort of the end of our segment today. So for all of you who want more information or who want to get in touch with us, you can contact us at info@oncourseglobal.com. You could also follow us on Facebook and Instagram, or you could also visit our website, www.oncourseglobal.com.
Thanks, guys.
Hey man, just help me out, man. I need some podcast, man. I haven't had a fix in a week. Just need some.
Don't you worry about it. I got podcast galore for you, man. Just go to ivmpodcast.com. You can also find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
Thanks, man. I'm gonna check it out.